Hello, healthy humans. It's Rick here, and it's my privilege, as always, to be a part of your journey. Today, I want to talk about those moments of willpower that we encounter when we're trying to do the right thing that we should be doing as part of our weight loss journey. And I want to share with you this is a post on Reddit of a guy. I'll just read it out. It says, 400 pounds guy. I nearly ordered takeout for dinner, but I didn't. I had the tuna pasta instead. Hi, everyone. I've had a bit of a bad day mentally, that is, and just not felt very good. It happens from time to time. I've been thinking about what to have for my dinner, and all I could think about was ordering takeout. I even had what I wanted in the basket. All I had to do was press the pay button, but instead I locked my phone, checked what I had in the fridge. I had some homemade tuna pasta my partner had made, so I decided that I'll have some of that instead. Good decision. I actually enjoyed it, and I'm nicely full now. A happy ending to the story. I plan on going on my exercise bike later on, an even happier ending. I hope everyone else is doing well. So I want to talk about this because this is a very common, like I'm sure if you're watching this right now and you're on a weight loss journey, then you 100% will have experienced this. I'm sure, no doubt that you can relate. And what we have here is a guy he's faced a moment where his subconscious has said, "I want this." And the reason his subconscious wants this is because he's had so many experiences of this takeout food. Let's just say that it's pizza, okay? Just for the sake of flowing the conversation better. He's had so many experiences in the past of eating pizza. His subconscious has now related that to just the normal thing, the right thing to do as it relates to who he is. And he's actively having to fight against that subconscious, that impulse, that urge to continue with this behavior. And he's having to fight against it by having his tuna pasta, which is a much better alternative, of course. And essentially, what he's doing is he's behaving in a way that's not consistent with how he sees himself. He still sees himself as a person who loves to eat takeout. He still sees himself as an overweight person. He started off the post. The first two words are 400 pounds guy. That's the first thing that he says. He doesn't even say hi. Well, he does, but the subject is 400 pounds guy. So this is how he sees himself. Like, first and foremost, above all else, he's a very overweight person. This is what he is telling us because that's what he's telling himself. Now, you might sit there and go, well, that's the truth. You know, if you're 400 pounds, you're 400 pounds. Great. But you can't look at the lens of the world and the way you behave. You can't look at it through that lens. You need to change the way that you look at yourself, because behaving in a way that's inconsistent with our identity is unsustainable, because our behaviors are our identity, and our identity is our behaviors. They are linked. It's an unbreakable link, and because of that, it's unsustainable. If you continue to do this for too long, one of three things happens. The first one, if you do it for a long time, is you get depressed, and the longer you continue on to do it for, and the more out of alignment they are, the more depressed you become. So think of athletes who have just professional athletes who have retired. It's so common for them to become depressed. Think of parents whose children have left the home. You know, the empty nest syndrome is a very common thing. Think of people with addictions who are continually doing this thing that they know they shouldn't be doing. They want to stop doing it, but they can't. These these are people who are behaving in a way, or unable to behave in a way, that's aligned to their identity. So there's that. Fortunately, that's not the majority. The majority of the time, the second one happens where we behave in a certain way that's not aligned to our identity. So what happens is we change our identity to match our behaviors. That could be a good or a bad thing. So, we could be eating, you could look at yourself a certain way, like, in a more positive light, and then you continually do bad things, and or do bad things. You eat bad things, you stop exercising, you put on a whole bunch of weight, and you think, geez, I look terrible. I'm so out of shape. I'm so lazy. I'm so this, I'm so that. And that's pretty common, unfortunately. The inverse of that, of course, is you are the 400-pound gentleman and you start behaving in a certain way that helps you lose weight and you get results. And those results help you change your identity. So your identity changes to match your behaviors in that way as well. And that's a more positive, and that's the most common thing. And full disclosure, that's how it happened for me. When I began my health journey, it was I broke up with my ex. You know, we were together for 6.5 years. It was a very jarring experience for me. I didn't even know how to be alone. So basically, I got into this habit for a few weeks where I just went to the gym all the time. Um, and I did that for like a month. And it was mainly just because it wasn't even like, oh, I'm going to show her, I'm going to look so hot. It wasn't any of that. It was, I just did not know what to do with myself. It was pretty sad actually, but the result was positive, fortunately. But um, I was there was very little healthy about my state at that point, other than the fact that I was exercising a lot and eating pretty well. But that's a different story. But eventually, what happened was I lost a good amount of weight. I looked in the mirror. I was like, wow, like I do look quite different. I didn't know I had a vein there. It was nice things that I was seeing, and I started to see myself as a more athletic person. I started to see myself as healthy. I still, I ate pizza and stuff from time to time, but it was not something that I made a habit out of because I saw myself this certain way, and so my internal dialogue was different, which I'll come back to in a minute. And then the third way, which is less common, is the most effective way. And that is by changing your perception of yourself first and then having your behaviors match that. And to explain why that's the most optimal way, I'll tell you why the way before it, obviously not the depression route, but the second one is not optimal. When you are requiring your perception to change to match your behaviors, what needs to happen? There's a conduit in between. That's results, right? So um, your behaviors are creating results, and those results are affecting your identity, your self-perception, right? So, from in my example, I saw a person in the mirror who looked quite different. People made some comments about how much weight I'd lost as well, and um, that changed the way that I looked at myself. But that's a very shaky foundation. And the reason for that is because anybody who's been on any sort of a health journey in the history of humanity, and anyone who will be in the future, will know about the plateau. We all hit the plateau. And it happened to me. My first month, like it's really easy to get those results that I got. Anybody that starts going to the gym and eats healthy for 3 or 4 weeks will see results. Every single person. Your body's in shock. It doesn't know what's going on. It's a big deal, and you will see results. But the plateau comes. It might take a month. It might take 2 months. It might take 3 months, but it comes. And what happens then? Because you needed the results to impact the way that you saw yourself. When the results stop coming, that's a problem. What happens is what most common reaction to the plateau is, fuck, I spent all this time working my ass off, and for months I lost all this weight and it was great. And now I'm still putting in all this work and nothing's happened for 6 weeks. And you think, what's the point? Why am I even doing this? It's so hard. It's so this, it's so that. I'm making all these sacrifices for what? And you get frustrated. And I don't need to tell you what happens next. And that's a very, very, very common scenario. This is crash dieting. And you want to avoid that as much as possible. The other reason it's not a good one is because it relies on willpower a lot. So this a perfect example is this story. This guy needed willpower in this scenario to make the right decision, to display the behavior that he needed that aligns to the identity that he's trying to get. And this is the more you tap into your willpower, the more likely you are to fail. Eventually, you will make the wrong decision. because I don't know exactly what willpower is. I think a lot of people are trying to figure out what the hell it is, like it's some sort of fuel reserve. But it is a good analogy for it. There's only a certain amount of fuel in there, and it replenishes over time. But if you tap into it too much, it's gone. Um, Willpower, those the moments where you need to make the decision, they're moments that you can also have a collision, and you need to stay away from those as much as possible. You need to create situations where you don't need to rely on willpower. And that is where your self perception comes into it. Your identity makes all the difference in these scenarios, because instead of having a conversation, like he probably had a conversation that was something like, I really shouldn't have takeout. I can't have takeout. I'm trying to lose weight. I want to be healthy. This is such a bad conversation to be having with yourself. It might work today. It might even work tomorrow, but it won't last forever. It'll stop working, and you'll start employing the behaviors that you don't want, and boom, you're fucked. Um, what what is a better conversation to be having internally instead of that is, I don't. I don't eat pizza. And it's really easy to say that to yourself if I have a perception of myself that I'm an athlete, I'm a healthy person. But when you're having conversations with yourself like, I want to be healthy, when you say I want something, you're also saying I am not that. And that's really, really important. When you say I should do this, where you say I can't do this, you're also leaving room open for negotiation, right? It's not black and white. You are kind of saying, I shouldn't do it, but it could be done. Even saying I can't do it, what does it really mean? So the language that needs to change there is I don't. You need to substitute shouldn't and can't for don't. I don't do that. There's no ambiguity there. All right? You're not leaving anything to negotiation. I don't do this is very simple. And um, that's a very easy thing to say when you're seeing yourself, when you have the right self perception, when you have the right identity for yourself. And stop looking at yourself as a 400-pound guy first. Start looking at yourself as an athlete, as a healthy person. And you might sit there and think, well, that's ridiculous. The guy is 400 pounds. How can he claim to be a healthy person? Who is anybody to tell you how you should or shouldn't look at yourself? I said before, your behaviors are your identity, and your identity is your behaviors. There's no time stamp on that, right? I'm not saying you have to have displayed those behaviors for X amount of time before you can claim to be that identity. No, if you're executing those behaviors now, then that is your identity, and you can look at yourself that way. So if this 400-pound guy was going to the gym and eating healthy food, he ate tuna pasta, then nobody else in the world can sit there and say that he's not a healthy person, because he's behaving in that moment the same way that any other healthy person on the planet would. So it's totally fine for him to look at himself that way. Not only is it fine, it's absolutely necessary for him to look at himself that way for the reasons that I've just stated. Because that's where it starts. It starts up here. The world doesn't happen to us, we happen to the world. And all of the actions that we take, it comes from in here. So this is the most valuable thing. When you haven't changed your self-perception first, you'll keep encountering moments like this gentleman has here. And the more you encounter it, the likelihood increases of you failing and you making the mistake and displaying the wrong behaviors and giving yourself reasons to start looking at yourself as an unhealthy, lazy, whatever person. And it's such a common thing. We say terrible things to ourselves all the fucking time. It's such an unhealthy thing. It's really easy for us to call ourselves names, call ourselves lazy, this and that when we slip up. But What you do next is all that matters. What you do next defines who you are, because that's your behavior. So I wanted to leave you with that. I think that this is a really important subject. A lot of people, it's not something that you can change. I've never worked with anybody that changed their self perception overnight, but uh, it takes time, and it is a journey, right? And it's not a destination. If you want to be here to look at yourself as an athlete, but you're over here as the 400-pound guy, okay, maybe it's too much to say that you're here with your perception, but you got to get moving. You got to push your perception, your self-perception, your identity. You got to push it this way as much as you can every day. And that's where affirmations come into it. A lot of people think of hocus pocus and bullshit. If you think that, then you have a lot to learn about the world. It's literally scientifically proven. Okay. All of these things, the way that we talk to ourselves, it impacts every facet of your life, not just your health, not just your physical health, I should say. So, um, this is the most important place for anybody to start. If you find yourself having too many of these willpower moments, these collision moments, you need to start having a look at these internal conversations. And every single time you do, every single time you take a step out from yourself and you just have that awareness that, hey, I'm not treating myself very, very nicely here. I'm saying I can't. I'm saying I shouldn't. I'm saying I want to have something. Every time you notice yourself doing it, just take a step back and correct yourself. Every time you do that, you're taking a step in the right direction. Like I said, it is a journey. You're not going to be the Dalai Lama overnight in complete control of your thoughts. But the more you start to realize how much you're being controlled by your thoughts, the closer you're going to get to starting to control those thoughts. So I'd like to leave you with that. I hope this helps. Good luck to our 400-pound friend over here. Congratulations to him on another good day. But I hope that he's able to start to see himself in a different way. And he opens up his next post, his next subject line, does not start off with 400 pounds guy, but something a lot more loving of himself.